Kaos. I'm a Taiwanese American, but my Chinese pronunciation of my name is actually Betty Dao Bei Gao. This is a piece that I made with my friend Jeannie Angel, and I was really interested in. I studied plant sciences and art and social change, and I was really interested in the idea of plant communication, like shamanism and alternative medicine. And I had been thinking about like a science project type of artwork. My friend Jeannie Angel, who she was the AV person for the Guggenheim for a little while. So we came up with this idea that created, this piece is called Take Flight. We call it chandeliers. In shamanism, they call it like when your soul leaves, it's sort of a flight. So we wanted to make something that was glamorous or fun for like a tree, but then there was a way to communicate with it. Down below there's a phone number that you can actually call, and she installed a Wi-Fi high-powered modem into the tree that someone could actually call the phone number, and go into a program she set up on her home computer that actually mixed the sound, and it came back out. And there's little speakers actually in the chandelier, and when you walk underneath it, you can hear your voices or your message, and on your message incorporated with other people's. And then I had a little bit of if I could play it, a little bit of a video where you could see it. But, play it. I'm hoping you can see it. You can do that. Those are the messages that people left, and they're being incorporated and coming out of the speakers in the tree. So I did this other piece. I'm interested also a lot in symbolism and alchemy and science. And this piece is actually based on the idea of bee colony collapse. And I got the composition from images of ancient Babel, where instead they had stars lining up instead of the bees. But every bee here is actually, there's a pair of each different kind of bee, except for the one on the lower left. And they come from different cultures. There's Phoenician, ancient Egyptian, hieroglyphics, Sanskrit, a scientific model, and then another one I drew that based on sacred geometry. And what it was that every single bee stood for a different language, and how in Babel, when the building fell, God tasked everyone to speak a different language so everyone would live in confusion. But I drew like the honeycomb hive as Babel itself, which is actually, the European Union is actually based on that shape of ancient Babel. So the idea of bee colony collapse is that if the bees do die and then there's no pollinators, then the food system in the world will collapse. So it's an allegory on miscommunication in science and all the things that are happening with monoculture. And you can see, this is the scale of the painting. It's actually quite large. And this is actually the image of ancient Babel and what it was looked like. And instead of the ring of stars, I did the bees as a language. And this is actually an image of the European Union in Belgium. And this is like their version of the United Nations. And I do large paintings. Sometimes I do them in alternate scales. They're based on mythology. The one on the right is a raven bringing light up into the sky, which is an ancient Native American story about how light came into the world. And then beneath it is the serpent and the rainbow, which is an image in Haitian mythology about the creation of the universe. And I did it in the shape of DNA, which is also just the beginnings of our own system, and they're actually placed. If it's lined up this way, it's actually based on your chakras, being the crown chakra being white, and then you can't see it, but the one on the very bottom, there's red is your base chakra, and then on the left is an auspicious goldfish image with this creature that I made up called a love buzz, which is like a childlike alien that instead of like abducting you, it actually brings you joy and knowledge, which is just like a thing that I like based on how children think of images as powerful protectors and totems. I think like the reason why people are attracted to animals is that in our culture we're so away from nature that I feel like people have to have animals represented in different ways, be it stuffed animals or like images on packaging. And this is a piece, I'm a big fan of Hello Kitty, and this is actually a piece based on also the Bible. The title of my piece was if you look back, you will turn to tears. And it's a piece based on the Bible where Lot's wife looked back when the city was in Gomorrah was set on fire, and she turned to a pile of salt. But to me, I always thought that was like a metaphor or a poem in a way, that she was the person who couldn't just turn her back on society with everything burning. She would actually look back and she would turn to tears, and everything that's made out of her body, the fluids, the salts, and the umbilical, it's all salts. And her turning back, I felt, was like a touch of empathy. And she must have cried and not wanted to leave and had wanted to save everybody. So the image on top is of the LA riots and Rodney King being beaten. This piece was made back in 2000, 2001. And I kind of feel like if you were there and you saw everything that was happening, how could you just leave? You would probably want to stay and somehow help. And then there's Hello Kitty there. I sculpted her and turned her into salt, a pile of salt. And underneath is the word empathy. So I have this idea that, as people create personal items and put them on their shelves at home that are very personal to them and sacred to them, little tchotchke items and things like that, but, the little things that you save are sacred to you. So I made a series of shelves filled with different items, and they have like references to Buddhism, Christianity, ancient Chinese medicine, and toys and packaging. And there's like a contrast. On the upper left is an apple with a fig and a fetus. On the bottom, a panda doll that I made in a candy container with a lotus. And on the shelf are two pandas that have had their stigmata shown. And I eviscerated them and gave them bleeding hands and palms. And then there are handmade objects that I made with beeswax, and there are some faces in it. And then I contrasted the idea of the apples and the figs because in the Bible, apples are supposed to be the fruit of the fallen, but the fruit of the knowledge. But since I studied science, I know that Bibles actually do not come from the Bible countries because it would actually be impossible. They have to have a winter cycle to freeze. So most likely what it was actually a fig. And the fig is actually known also, the fig tree is where Buddha attained enlightenment, which is also another tree of knowledge. So I was contrasting the fig and the apple. And on the right is actually a bottle of American ginseng and yen chow, which I filled with organ-like elements in it. And here you can see more detail. I made like little organ-like objects and wrapped them in gold string and put them in a fluid. And then on the back of the American ginseng, I actually had put an image, a self-portrait of myself, and then you can actually see it in the bottle. If you can see it, sort of, that's a self-portrait of myself looking out at you. Being an Asian American, I contrasted American ginseng as an idea. And this is a close-up of the apple and figs being contrasted together. The apples I left to rot for a while. This is an image of a greenhouse that I had made, and the body beneath is a daikon that I had sculpted, and a lot of different sacred plants, motherwort, lotus, orchids, and her arms are actually made out of apple wood. I made a fig that was translucent and it was stitched up because I felt it had such a metaphorical idea that it was really like I like anthropomorphic objects and the idea of like that a lot of objects are actually given such meaning. These are I did a show at the Maker Fair, the World Fair in the New York Hall of Science, and I've made puppets also, and these are different ones that I've made, objects for short films, and they're based on also like different ideas. There's one that's an alien, there's one that it opens up, and some of them they have eyes that glow in the dark, and there's a rabbit that's was made from my friend's short movie. And this is the detail of the rabbit. It has a third eye on top, as you can see. And it's going to be in a short film. And this is actually a piece that I made for one of my favorite writers, passed away, Robert Anton Wilson. He was really into debunking conspiracy theories, using poetry and science together and all these different things. Into the star system, Sirius is the constellation on the bottom, a lotus, the third eye, that's also iron triangle, that's also the symbol of money, and white rabbits, which he jokes about in his books, The Cosmic Trigger. And he's really into the number 23, which is also another thing that William Burroughs popularized. So I made this piece and it was shown at the Queen's Museum. And I invited people to like leave objects and take objects, and people left poems and crystals and candles. It was really nice. This is a detail of a sculpture that I made. I handmade and cast little objects and made it so that it's supposed to hang on the wall like a shelf. And then when you open it up, it's like the collective subconscious of a person with the different senses. There's like topiary trees and a little robot and a staircase that opens up that Hello Kitty can walk through, milk, trees, fish, just different things like within it. And the face is not mine, it's actually another girl who is Asian that let me use it. And I attached metal hinges so it opens up. And I guess that's it.